On today's show, Detroit Pistons Cornerstone Cade Cunningham impresses with the USA Select team. Have people maybe forgotten how good Cade is because of his injury this past season? What are the expectations for Cade, the Pistons, and Monty Williams this next year? It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every single victory along the way. And you can use those bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. Right now, take a look at the odds of Super Bowl winners this season. Kansas City Chiefs at plus 600. Philadelphia Eagles at plus 800, the Buffalo Bills at plus 900, and then rounding out the top five, you got the Bengals and the 49ers at plus 1,000 a piece. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Pistons, Ku Khahil. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcast, and on YouTube, just search Locked On Pistons. And Ku, we found out that the USA Select team actually managed to beat USA's FIBA World Cup team in a pair of back-to-back scrimmages this past week, going into the weekend, and they were kind of spearheaded by Cade Cunningham, who apparently was a big-time standout from these little scrimmages, these practices that are going on right now in preparation for World Cup. Let's start right there. You saw the scrimmage footage. For those who haven't seen it, how did Cade look, at this point, and kind of seeing him on a court and really getting after it in these, kind of 5-on-5 settings?
So even before I watched the scrimmage video, I had some people telling me that were there that Cade looked really good. And even at that point, he still looked like he had some rust that he could knock off, that he didn't look as explosive. And despite that, he still wowed Steve Kerr and looked like, I think some of them were saying, looked like the best player on the floor and that day. So then I went and watched some of the scrimmage videos myself, and Cade just plays with such a level of like patience and poise, and he never gets sped up, and he looked like he was just controlling the whole game out there. I know it was just a scrimmage, it wasn't like an actual game, but he was controlling the scrimmage for the select team. Just was never too rushed, creating open shots, not just for himself, but for others, getting the matchup that he wants. The way they were using him in the scrimmage is how I've been wanting the Pistons to use him for a long time. Steve Kerr called it the Luka impersonation. I don't want them to, the Pistons have a lot of talent on their team, so they don't have to go crazy with the heliocentric offense, but letting Cade go out and find his mismatch on the offensive end of the floor, spacing the floor out and just letting him attack and create for himself or others is what I've been wanting them to do. And he was doing that in that scrimmage, and he looked like he was just doing whatever he wanted to do out there.
Are you surprised at all that he wasn't one of the players selected for the actual FIBA team and that he was instead on the select team?
So they asked him to be on the USA team. They gave him the invite to be on the roster. He denied it because he wants to get ready for the season. I would have loved to see him on the USA team. It would have been a lot of fun to be able to watch Cade. And it would have brought some eyes. Well, he's already, even without being on the team, he's been able to bring some eyes to the Pistons and some eyes to himself. But him being on the USA team, if he would have accepted the invite, would have brought a lot of eyes to him. I would have loved to see how he played on the team. And it would have been super dope. But I know there was an interview today with The Athletic that he talked about why he declined their invite, how he just wants to get ready for the season. I heard that a few weeks ago when Woj tweeted out that he got the invite. We were hearing that it was because he just wanted to get ready for this upcoming season, didn't want his off-season plans too disrupted when he's trying to get ready for basically what's going to be a second season coming off this injury for the Pistons. So his goals right now, his whole mindset seems to be about best season I can possibly have for the Pistons this year. and doesn't want anything to disrupt that kind of offseason mentality. So I can respect it, but I can also acknowledge that it would have been super dope to see him take the invite and join the team.
Yeah, I feel like I get this sense, and maybe this is, I have a wrong read on the situation, but I feel like people are maybe sleeping a little bit on Cade because of the injury this past season, because he only played the 12 games, and people kind of have forgotten why he was a number 1 overall pick, how good he did look when he was healthy, when he was out there on the court. So what, I mean, at this point, what should the expectations be for Cade going into, like you said, what is essentially his second year in the NBA?
So it's tough to, with how good he's looking at scrimmages, apparently, and how good he's looking for the select team and these practices, etc. I've been trying to temper expectations a little bit to start the year because he's coming off an injury. He's trying to get back into game shape. He hasn't played against, he is now, but before now, he hadn't been playing like 5-on-5 NBA players since the surgery. So I was like, it's going to take some time for him to get back into shape, and he might be a little rusty. But with how he's playing right now for the scrimmage, for the team, he's getting back into game shape. Maybe he could start out the gate a little bit faster than I thought he would for someone who just missed the entirety of the last season. Overall, this upcoming season, I think like if you want to know like a box score expectation, I think he could average around 22 to 23 points a game, 7 assists, 6 rebounds, that kind of thing. I think that would be really good. I don't know if he'll be able to I don't think he'll be able to be an all-star this year, even though I think he might like creep up on all-star level play this year now and at age 21. Just because the Pistons are not, I don't think they're going to be very good this year. But overall, I think after this year, the whole sleeping on Cade stuff, he won't be getting slept on anymore. I think that overall will be what changes.
What was kind of the biggest question mark in his game pre-injury, kind of the thing that you were going into year 2, hoping to see him improve on from year 1 that unfortunately obviously didn't get enough runway to really iron out the kind of the kinks in his game?
I would say like the 3-point shooting really was the biggest. The 3-point shooting was the biggest area of improvement needed for him coming out of college. That was one of his strengths. One of his pull-up shooting off of from deep. That was one of his strengths, and he wasn't able to do that as much in his rookie season. He was very up and down throughout the year when it came to beyond the arc shooting. So that's what we wanted to see from him in his second season. His pull-up shooting in the mid-range from long 2 range was actually really damn good in his second season. So it was signaling his free throw shooting, how he shot from long 2 and pull up middies. It was signaling, kind of indicators that it was going to eventually start coming around. But again, he ended up getting hurt and not being, or he didn't get hurt, but ended up having surgery on the shin that had been bothering him for a while. So we didn't get to really see that. That's what we're going to be watching for most, I'd say, this upcoming season. Because coming into the league, some of the concerns that fans had was, he's not this crazy athletic dude that plays for your Houston Rockets like Jalen Green, and they were concerned about his finishing ability. And actually, that was his strength coming into the league. If you look, B-Ball Index tweeted out a stat, I believe, a few months ago talking about the best finishing grades over the past 12 years, and Cade was number 1 when you take into account spacing, level of difficulty around the rim. So finishing actually was one of his strong suits. That's what expected to be one of his weaknesses, and then one of his strengths actually was his weaknesses during his rookie year. So if Cade's able to get that pull-up 3-point shooting back to where it was at Oklahoma, it's going to be tough to guard him. It really is. So hopefully the shin surgery helps him get lift back into his shot. I know that's been a real big focus for him this offseason, so we'll see how it turns out. If that comes around, it's going to be tough to guard him.
What type of impact are you expecting Monty Williams to have with Cade specifically, but just kind of for the team as a whole, right? Going into year 1 and kind of trying to create his own culture, his own identity for this Pistons group.
I'm really excited for what he's going to do with this team offensively and what kind of like system they run, what kind of sets they run. Because I was a very vocal critic of Dwayne Casey's offensive system and how it utilized certain players. I thought it was a little bit vanilla, very bland, wasn't too creative. And again, like the way that the select team was using Cade is how I've been wanting to see him used. The big thing about Cade was that he's supposed to be like an offensive system, an offensive powerhouse in and of himself, someone who can create for himself and also create for others at a high rate. And that was what he was doing in the select game. We've only seen him do it a few times. My favorite game of Cade's career came in his rookie year against the Utah Jazz. I believe it was on like a January 11th. in his rookie season. And it was a game Dwayne Casey missed. Rex Clayman, assistant coach, took over. They ran in the second half a 5-out system, put Trey Lyles at the 5 and let him just search Cade, let him search out his mismatch. And he had 27 points in the second half. So that's what I want to see from him. I'm interested to see if Monty does a little bit of that, but I know also Monty, I'm with the Pistons having Cade and Jaden Ivey, it kind of is like the same thing as like the Suns had with like Booker and CP3. So I know he has experience running with 2 main ball handlers at the guard positions as like their best players. So I'm sure he's going to bring over some of that from Phoenix to Detroit and get creative with that. But I do think at the end of the day, I hope they don't need to make it their main offense or run it all the time. I do think that it could be really as simple, though, as just Monty being like, hey, Cade, we're going to space the floor. Go get the matchup you want and take us to the promised land. Like, I really do think it could be that simple.
How will Cade Cunningham ultimately level up in year 3 of his NBA career? What will Monty Williams do? What will he further unlock for Cade's game? You'll have us covered for all of that and more over at Locked On Pistons. Ku, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Appreciate you.